What's going on? Yes, here. Another Play and Explain. This one will be pretty brief. Got 3 tables of 100 NL going. In the corner, I got some RNG. So hopefully going to get into some spots. Going to probably just do like one hand after the session to sort of review. So here I open Jack 4. I get called by the big blind. You can play big better check here. I think this hand mixes, so I'm going to check this time, but it's definitely nice to put into the bet. I feel more inclined to check just because I know my opponents are usually not playing over bets, like in terms of stabbed sizes. And then here, my hand is even stronger now in this check line. So when they snap check back, I have a hunch that I'm winning quite often. And the size is basically saying like, oh, I have, pocket fives or like a queen or something, but I'm not going to fold yet. So rivering trips is quite nice. I'm deliberating whether or not to donk lead. I think leading is actually, does leading make sense? Yeah, their sizing on the turn is a little bit weak, so I think just targeting that range of hands on the river is quite good. I don't expect like 5s, 6s, 7s, a queen to reopen the action, but I'd expect them to call. Then here we'll fold. Gonna fold the 8-7 here. I wasn't really thinking about this hand much. I was a little bit too caught up in the bottom left hand side table, so. Trying to stay like an even distance from the mic and keep my volume pretty consistent for this one. I noticed a couple things from the last video. One, I need a pop filter. So you probably heard like some nice P sound there, but that is due to having no pop filter on this microphone yet. So hopefully we'll get that as something to, sort of filter some of those noises. I think this is a small blind cold call from a weaker player. Jack 7-4 rainbow. I'm not exactly familiar with the strategy is on this board. I think generally pressuring like a lot of the pocket pairs is good here. And then you're going to raise. So pocket deuces, 3s, 5s, 6s, all stuff like that. And then turning double gutted, so large 3-bet, we're going to fold. Turning double gutted, this hand does a nice job of, it just has a lot of equity. I could check this back, but I think it's worth it to, I'm going to roll for this. We'll 3-bet this time. And then here we will just use a pot size. That will be the default strategy. And it's hard for him to call down with like 5-4, 7-6 pocket pairs, like a lot of the weaker region that just snap calls. This will be a mix as well. On a 36, we'll call. Fold. So Jack 10-4 two-tone, he should be playing. He could do a number of things. It looks like he's going for like a more medium size. So this might be a tailored bet size to like a 10 or something or a jack. I think my hand can go either way. I'd prefer to check raise with this combo with the back door as well. Like it's pretty nice to go with that. And we'll use like, we could use polar or like a more merged size. But I think these boards tend to be a little bit more polar. So. Turning the nuts with the redraw. I think this combo will always barrel. Basically, barreling for pot here. I think pot is about geometric, maybe a little bit less. Let's use a 3/4 size. And then going all in on the river, pretty much always. I think it really outperforms checking here. But I mean, you could check, right? Like I'm basically saying I have a set plus on the turn, and then river, we're gonna go all in. Do I use a non-all-in size? Maybe I do, but yeah, I think going all in is probably the best play. And just forcing my opponent into a decision with two pair or like some catcher that they really don't want to fold. Nice. So I'm unsure about the river strategy there. So we'll look at that later. I'm sure I played another interesting spot, right? Somewhere around here. Raise this, and then we'll go ahead and look at this one as well. Only playing 3-bet or fold from the cutoff here. So I see some players playing flats, but for me it's really hard to balance that type of strategy. We're going to tag this player as a little bit more passive. Just 4 I'll fold. And then I'm going to opt to, well, I guess I'm just heads up with the cold caller. So I will go ahead and start betting this. This immediately is like taking money from like the 9s region, the 8s, 7s, and then a brick turn where I'd pick up additional equity. I think I want to be in preparing to like go all in with this hand. I don't think I would ever check this back. Like you could check back a number of other combos, but generally would like to barrel spades on the turn. And my hand is like, looks like spades, but it's also top pair. Here I will go ahead and flat the button with this hand. And then king 10 versus min. We will defend. I'm trying to think. Yeah, this will be a pure defend. Go ahead and check here. It can donk somewhat on these types of boards, and then here we'll check. Yeah, so I think stabbing is very like efficient here because it forces him to check this as well, and then I can begin bluffing here. I think I'm going to go ahead and check raise this combo. This is like right on the threshold. When the big blind calls, check this back and realize, like, I think that if I like continue betting, it's like, what am I saying? Yeah, this is maybe like a fishier player. I think the fold equity on this river is very low as well, and my removal is kind of like not like, it's like kind of like whatever. So I wonder, where did I play that other hand? I don't know. I think it was down here. I check raised the turn. Yeah. Oh, no, that's not it. I think this is it. Yes. Okay. I guess maybe we look at this hand right now because we got nothing going on. So low jack opens, and we defend the big blind with king of diamonds, 10 of hearts. We get 5-5-3 two-tone. Now this board I think can play some donks. I think this hand is probably going to donk sometimes with the diamond, especially, right? It's like kind of nice. Is this mixing? Yeah, this is mixing. I will defend this time. Check. And then we will look at this hand later. So 10-9-8. He could do a number of things in this board. I think generally you want to use like more medium sizes, but you want to play a lot of checkbacks as well because of how dynamic the board is. With 10-8, you can go pretty much either way. I think I prefer betting with the heart. There's a number of like overcard combos with one heart that will be forced to defend. You can overbet or you can bet like a medium size as well. Might prefer to just use like a pot size actually rather than the overbet. And then here, I'm going to go ahead and check and sort of force calls from that region, but looks like I didn't really get the desired outcome. Jack 10. So this board I'm playing half pot or check, and then on this turn I will continue checking. This player seems a little bit more passive. And then on the queen, yeah, I'll always bluff this. And I'll probably just use like an overbet size. Basically saying like I have like a slow played king or like pocket queens. Here. I don't know what the exact strategy is. I'm going to have to pull this spot up on the turn because this is a delay line, right? So it goes check, check on the flop. Turn 9 pairs the bottom card. I don't know what exactly the strategy is, but I think that my hand still is likely the best hand. I blocked some 9x that they could have, but I think they bet most of their 9x. So I'm going to use this pot size. Do I think this is good? I think it's quite close. Maybe using like a 3/4 size is a little bit better, like for your, in terms of like an overall strategy. But this may be okay. So we get paid. I think I sort of butchered this line, but we will see. I'm going to pull this one up as well. And just do a quick time check. So it looks like I'm about 15 minutes in. Like I said, this is going to be a quick one. So we'll likely end the video in a moment. Yeah, so this is the type of hand that would like to continue itself. So this is a limped pot, but 6-5-4, I'm doing very well. Like I have many hands, so I do have to be a little bit careful since it's a limped pot. Here, I'm basically just going to say I have 8-7. Go ahead and 3-bet here, or if you mean 4-bet. Smaller 3-bet size, so can do a bit of flatting. I don't know if aces necessarily wants to do a lot of flatting versus the smaller size. I know that versus 12 big blinds, aces might flat occasionally, but I don't think that's the case with a 10 big blind, small blind 3-bet. let me go ahead and set out the next big blind, and then I will look at these hands and we will review one of them, just so that I can keep the video like under 20 minutes or at about 20 minutes. I think that's the sort of like preferred length. Anything longer than that, it's like, I don't know. I wouldn't want to watch a 30-minute video of me playing poker, really. Like, unless I was doing some sort of analysis, like of all the spots I played. It's kind of like a lot to just watch in passing, right? So, yeah, I will be right back with one of these spots pulled up, and then we'll do like a GTO Wizard analysis and maybe look at some MDA stuff as well. All right, I'm back. I know I said one hand, but all the spots that I tagged from the session were pretty interesting, so I figure I'd just try and speed run through them really quick, because I noticed that I've been making some pretty big mistakes on turns and rivers primarily. So I think flop, I have a general idea of what's going on, but not always clear to me what's happening on the turn. And some of these spots are not so intuitive, so you'll have to let me know what you think in the comment section, or if you guys are finding this strategy without like looking at the solution. So the first spot is this hijack versus big blind spot. So hijack opens 2 big blinds. We roll a call with the king queen of hearts. Jack 10-4. Check. Our opponent uses half pot c-bet, which is totally fine. They could play a number of sizes here, and we decide to check raise full pot. So this is like, I think that I would basically not really want to play like a smaller size on this type of board. Like the smaller size would basically be built around like pairs that need some protection, as well as like some value, right? They can get called by overcards. Everything that you basically, like when you check raise this board, you get called, like the overcards have like tons of equity, and there just is not that many hands like that, like in that hand class. So it just makes more sense for me to use a polar size. So that's what I do. My opponent calls, and then we get the ace of hearts turn. And this is where I'm going to stop the hand. We're not going to go any further than this, because this is the node that I really seem to have misplayed severely. We end up betting 2/3, which is, I think, a nice size in my head. But if we were to go to look at the solution, which I've pulled up here, we see our opponent using this half pot c-bet. Whoops. Which is okay. I mean, maybe we could solve this to use exclusively half pot, but who knows? I don't know if that's worth it right now, because I'm just interested in the turn. So we use full pot size, which is what we see the solution is using as well, and our opponent calls. Then when we get to the turn, this is what I was like totally shocked by. We are range checking the ace of hearts, and we're range checking any heart turn. So let me see if I can maybe, is there a different way for me to look at this? Chart. I like the chart view a little bit better. Yeah, so these ace turns are getting range checked, with the exception of the ace of diamonds. So the ace of diamonds brings in some of the obvious draws. Totally shocking to me. I'm on my own time. I'm going to study this a little bit, but I thought this was like just an interesting thing for you guys to witness as well. Maybe you can go and look into why this might be happening, or you have an idea of why this might be happening. Totally like unexpected for me to run to this spot and see the solution is range checking the turn. So that'll be the first spot. Here is the second spot. So it's BVB, single raise pot. We open the jack 4 of spades from the small blind. Big blind defends. We get the ace of hearts, queen of hearts, 4 diamonds board. Check. Our opponent checks back. So this hand definitely like is playing as a mix. I'm not exactly, like in game, I wasn't exactly sure how often it would be used. Like I play overbet or check here, so I don't know how often this will be overbetting. But in this scenario, I rolled pretty low and I decided to check. Our opponent checks back. We get the deuce of clubs turn. We check again, and our opponent uses this B33 size. So this to me is like, it seems sort of hard to interpret, but if I were to guess, this would be like some sort of marginal pair, like eights, sevens, or queen. Could be some ace-x as well, but I think ace-x might want to size up if I'm just going on intuition. So we just had to call because there's just slightly too much air in our opponent's range that could be going into this line, and it's very easy to overbluff for that size. River force, we river trips, and then we have a decision between donking and checking, and we decide to go ahead and donk. And the reason being is this turn size to me seemed indicative of like only hands that would check back the river. So maybe my opponent's not thinking about what their range looks like, but to me it's like basically air or hands that will check back. So that's good for when you're bluff catching, but it's bad for when you river trips. So I basically think that my hand, or like, a number of hands have incentive to donk the river. And that's what we go ahead and do, and we get called. And unfortunately, our opponent doesn't show his hand because that's how this site works, but we can go ahead and look at the spot. So here we are. This is the strategy, BVB, ace, queen, 4, two-tone. We're seeing some small bets, but we're primarily using like big bet or check. I think and this is an interesting thing that I looked into a little bit. The purpose of the small bet is basically to like prevent the big blind from bluffing you off of hands with decent equity. If your opponent is not using like an appropriate stabbing strategy, i.e. like overbetting when check to, like say for instance in this node they were to use small bets or medium bets, you would see less betting overall from the small blind and like almost no small betting at all, because none of the hands that have like marginal equity are going to be put into a tough spot. So I thought that was interesting. Anyway, playing over better check here, we decide to check, which we see is like happening at some frequency, but our combo is mainly betting. So I wasn't exactly sure how often this would be happening, but it seems to be pretty frequent. And our opponent checks back. So we get the turn, deuce of clubs. We check. And our opponent, once again, is supposed to use an overbet or check strategy, but is using this B33. So this is sort of like a, I guess it would be considered a rare line. It's not really happening in theory. But if we were to like go ahead and look at what we should be doing, or what this solution is solved down to do, we can go and look at the river. So our hand is going to be a call, and then we get the river 4 of clubs, and we don't see much donking actually, but it's almost like a little bit of noise, it seems like. However, I think in practice, like, my reasoning for donking makes a bit of sense to me. I don't know if you guys will necessarily agree with it, but you can let me know your thoughts in the comment section for sure. The last 3 videos I've posted, I've pretty much donked in like some like unorthodox spots, or like maybe like some spots where people might not prefer to use that strategy. So definitely let me know what you are thinking about that. And yeah, let's move on to the next hand. So for this one, we are in the small blind with Jack 10 of spades. The button opens to 2.5, and we 3-bet to 12.5. So this is slightly a little bit too large. I think this is just like a laziness or lack of time bank on my end. And our opponent calls in the big blind. We get king 5 deuce. So I have in my head that on like these disconnected king high boards, so like king 8 deuce, king 5 deuce, king 6 deuce, I'm playing half pot or check. Some people prefer to play range bet. I think that might be a little bit of a better strategy, just because you can you'll never make mistakes at the first node of the game tree, but your opponent might make mistakes early on. So immediately forces your opponent into like sort of a decision where it's like you are guaranteed to never make a mistake initially. Anyway, I have been playing some big better check strategy here, and I opt to check this combo, which makes a bit of sense to me. Our opponent checks back. We get the 3 of hearts. So this type of hand as well, like I think just generally wants to check. Like we'll have plenty of offsuit hands with a heart to barrel, or combos with slightly more equity. So we check, and then we get the Queen of Clubs river, and we decide to use this B150 size. Now this size is basically saying like, okay, I have a queen or like pocket queens, right? Or like a slow played king. Like I guess like any king is worth like B150 at this point. But I think the more appropriate size that is like more full of value would be like Tibet pot. So we'll go ahead and look at what the river strategy is here. I've had to solve this one just because in theory this board is like playing a mix of sizes, and that's not really what I'm doing in practice. So here I've solved for one size, and it's choosing to use B150 or check, and not checking very often. So I may have overestimated how much checking is going on here. However, my combo is doing a little bit of checking. So we check, and my opponent checks back. Turn 3 of hearts. And we're just using this block size. So I'm not sure. I don't want to get too into like the theory behind this type of bet size, but it seems interesting to me, like that we'd only be using the smaller size. I guess if we were to give the solver or GTO AI like a number of sizes, maybe we'd prefer a different one. But for the sake of this video, we'll just quickly parse through, and our opponent will check back the turn as well. And then we get the Queen of Clubs river, and we'll see what Jack 10 is doing. So it is definitely preferring this like B40 size, and then using sometimes like this all in. Now, if I were to add some sizes, like for instance, like B100 and B150, we can see if it's constructing strategies or bucketing hands into some of those sizes as well. And yeah, basically we see B150 almost never getting used. So it doesn't make a ton of sense to use this size the more I think about it, but B100 is making a bit more sense. I think I just mentioned that about the hand, is that this would probably be the size that I prefer to use. And our combo is a pure bet. So anyway, we'll move on to the last hand, and this spot is like maybe not so interesting, but I just thought the turn was sort of like just indicating more mistakes that I make. So this is another single raise pot where we delayed to the turn. So my opponent checks back like a really high frequency bet board, and we decide to bet 3/4 pot here, which is already like you can play a mix of sizes on the turn. Basically like built around like a 9, like you can maybe use like an overbet or like a pot size bet. But like the bottom card pairing really impacts how much a queen is worth, and it is a little bit dubious to use like this B75 size to value bet like a marginal queen, like marginal top pair. So basically top pair that's chopping with everything else. Anyway, our opponent calls, and then we get the 6 of clubs, and at this point you're thinking, okay, like we've bet this large size on the turn, so now our hand is like not worth as much. But in my little pea brain, I thought to myself, let's be greedy and continue value betting. However, I don't think this is that bad, mainly because my opponent is like checking back probably a lot of Jack X, a lot of like lower pairs, some weaker stuff, some ace king. I don't know if they're like going to bluff catch me with that much worse though, unfortunately. So I think this line is a little bit dubious. And I think I was maybe just playing too many tables. So, and just to show you what the turn strategy is. So in the check line, so you can see B75s being used a little bit, but it's not really, like it's not really preferring to go into that size at that high of a frequency. And when it does, on the river, my hand is worth like, a small block or a check. So, yeah, been sort of misplaying turns, misplaying some rivers. I think it's sort of a function of playing too many tables and then also maybe being a little bit tired and unstudied. So tomorrow I'm definitely going to take some time, study some turns. Definitely need to study pre-flop again. I'm just rusty in general with pre-flop, so worth looking into. But studying turns is something that is a little bit interesting to me, just because I've been struggling with them the last couple sessions. Anyway, I'm going to wrap the video up here. I know every video I've posted has been me like winning on global, but that's just how I've been running lately. Trust me, like that's really not how my year has gone. And maybe I can give you guys some more insight into that if you're interested in the next video. Anyway, next video will be up in a little bit. It'll probably just be 2 tables, and what I'll do is I'll just review hands as I'm playing. I think it's a little bit more manageable than playing 3 or 4 tables. So I hope everyone has a great day, and I will see you guys soon.